Opening 30-minute segment. We're gonna expound more with John, 2 John. You want to shoot first? I'll tell you what. I'm gonna go here.
Okay.
What all has been said was true. Everybody's been hitting on point. Everybody's on point, and that's good. I think the most one, like again, we've all been talking about truth. What is truth? Another thing, just as a pastor, you hit on something, Sanders, that was very dear. As an elder, you have to watch the flock. You are to shepherd the flock. Peter tells you in 1 Peter chapter 5, he's letting you know, shepherd the flock. That means you have to make sure the shepherd and that made sure that whatever the sheep was eating was nurturable. We can't have them eating things that are not of growth. That's what something we got false teachers. We have to make sure as ministers of God, teachers, pastors, whatever your position is, even ministers of music, we have to make sure that what goes in, that the sheep are being fed properly. I don't know from you guys what else your comments on, but I think that's one of the things that's a big thing right now. These ministers are allowing people to, I know some churches are allowing the charismatics to come in. I'm talking about the oneness. They're coming in and they're preaching in these churches and they're saying all manner of things and no one is correcting them. I don't think Bibles are being used as a tool like they should be. When you go into the church now, the only one who's got a Bible probably is the one who's speaking. Everybody else is just listening. There's no examination. Acts 17, Paul is speaking, and the Bereans are checking behind him daily to see what he said is so.
That's right.
That's what we need to be doing. We need to be checking behind these pastors and these evangelists to see what is so. Again, what is true.
Just commenting further on the passage under examination. All right. Just a little historical context. According to one commentator at least, there were at least 3 groups, possibly 4, that made up the community that John was addressing. First of all, you had Jewish Christians, okay? You had Jewish Christians and Gentile Christians who received the truth that John, okay, promoted, okay? The apostolic teaching, the classic apostolic teaching according to Christ, all right? You also had Jews, all right, who did not receive Christ, okay? They were still stuck in the law, okay? One of the earliest groups in this vein would probably be the Ebionites. Okay, the Ebionites stressed the law, the keeping of the law. You can probably call them the first Seventh-day Adventists. Okay, they emphasized the law and the keeping of the law. You know, ceremonial laws, dietary laws, as well as the moral law. Okay, that was one of their distinguishing features. Okay, you also had the Hellenistic crowd, okay, coming out of, they had a pagan background, okay, really influenced by Platonism, okay. Platonism stressed the idea of forms, okay, that the reality of something is represented by the form of something, okay. The real thing is the form, the physical representation of that object, that which you can see. It's not really real, it represents the form that's behind it, okay? And that led to an early form of Gnosticism, okay? Where one of the tenets of Gnosticism says that anything that is spiritual or unseen is real, and anything that's physical or anything that's material is evil, okay? And so this is one of the things that John is addressing, okay? He talks about those who do not walk in the doctrine of Christ, who do not continue in the doctrine of Christ. Now, it's interesting, he says the doctrine of Christ, not the doctrine of Jesus, the doctrine of Christ, because Cerinthus was one of the people going around making a distinction between the physical Jesus on the one hand and the spiritual Christ on the other. separating the two. Okay? The idea that the physical Jesus at his baptism, okay, at his baptism, the Christ consciousness, if you will, descended upon the physical Jesus.
Now, ain't that Fred Price? Creflo Dollar.
You know, a lot of that. Yeah.
Some of that might
Yeah.
But Christian Science teaches this. Unity School of Christianity teaches this. Okay, and that just before his crucifixion, okay, the Christ consciousness
left out. Yeah.
leaves the physical Jesus. Okay, and so that only the physical Jesus dies, and not the spiritual Christ. Okay,
Yep.
John. This is one of the things that John was really hitting hard against. Okay. The doctrine of Christ. All right. Jesus is the Christ. John 20:31. Okay. Also 1 John 2:22. Okay. You gotta confess that Jesus is the Christ. He is the Messiah. They are one and the same.
Right.
All right. 100% God, 100% man. Okay. You had Jews who were de-emphasizing the deity of Christ, only stressing his humanity. On the one hand, you had pagans who were stressing the divinity of Christ without acknowledging his humanity. And John is rebuking both groups.
So sounds like, because now, and it's interesting, now this was written over 2,000 years ago. That's interesting. We have the record is speaking, and we call it the record, a historical record that is speaking about what you're talking about. And today, yet even today, we still got that same practice being done now. I've always said that Satan doesn't change his stripes.
He doesn't.
He doesn't.
No.
He comes with the same ploy.
Over and over again.
Over and over again. Over and over again. We see that now. You know, like I said, and people say, well, you shouldn't be calling our names. And I tell them to read 2 Timothy and 3. Read 2 Timothy and 3. As our Pastor Moss says, how you know what a bad meat at if I don't tell you what store it's at?
There you go.
You know what I'm saying? So
There
yeah.
you go.
So these guys don't want to be called out. You hear them say, "Don't touch my anointing," and they again, Satan is twisting the scriptures because when you read that about David, he didn't touch David. He didn't touch Saul physically, but he did rebuke Saul for chasing him. So we can rebuke an elder. That's over in 1 Timothy and 5. So again, you've got this where these teachers want to make sure that this hands off. This is very interesting. We're talking about with John, and we're talking about these false teachers, and I know people say, well, what do you mean they false teachers? Again, going back to, they're not within the truth. They're going away from what John or what Christ was speaking about, the teachings. He said, if you abide in my teachings, you are truly my disciple.
Right.
So if we are disciples of Christ, then we have to believe that Jesus is 100% man, 100% God. We have to believe that his death, burial, and resurrection. We have to believe in those things, the things that Jesus taught. It's just interesting. It's just very interesting to me today that we have some of the same things that are going along over in Galatians 3. Paul is telling you there's people attaching things to the crucifixion. Your salvation, you gotta, you hear people say you gotta tarry for the Holy Spirit. You gotta wait on the Holy Spirit. And that's not true according to Ephesians 1 and 13. Of hearing and receiving of the word, you are then you're sealed with the Holy Spirit. So these false teachings, there's a lot of them that's going around. Don't let me hog this, brothers.
Okay.
Y'all jump up in there.
Let me jump in.
Right. Come on.
I'll jump in because it's interesting that you come that route because you and Dwight both brought out verse 8 in 2 John. Look to yourselves that we lose not those things which we have wrought, but that we will receive a full reward. And I think it's interesting in that you both interpreted it the same way. We have to watch out. Defensively, within the faith, the faithful must be aware of who the adversary is sending to attack the flock.